I sat on the 32nd floor balcony where the morning wind brushed gently against my silvering hair, and the city below unraveled like a slow spilling canvas. The coffee in my hand had gone cold, untouched, not because I was thinking about the markets, but because I was thinking about a look I couldn't measure with numbers. My name is Victor Ellington. I'm 58. Some call me a silver shark in the investment world, not because I'm ruthless, but because I'm rarely wrong. Over the past 3 decades, I've learned to tell a genuine handshake from a poisoned one. In business, trust is never a default. It must be tested by fire, by failure, and by silence. But even I let my guard down, right inside my own home. My son, Grayson, was everything a father could hope for. Intelligent, principled, and possessed of a quiet strength. He didn't just read the world, he listened to it. He didn't want to dominate people. He wanted to understand them. So when he brought Celeste home, I saw no threat, no red flags. She was polite, soft-spoken, her eyes a clear, polished blue, her manner refined but unassuming. She didn't brag, didn't overreach. She baked, she read poetry, she helped in the kitchen, cleaned up quietly. She looked like everything society says a good wife should be. And Grayson, he looked at her as though he'd found his harbor. "She listens, Dad," he once told me. "Not just hears, really listens. When I'm with her, I don't feel like I have to prove anything." He smiled when he said it. The kind of smile men wear only when they believe they're safe. They married after nearly 2 years together. A quiet wedding, elegant, almost cinematic in its intimacy. And then came the news. Celeste was pregnant. Grayson dove into fatherhood like a man stepping into sunlight. He rearranged his work life, started renovating the nursery, read parenting books by the stack. He bought herbal tea, organic pillows. He even started meditating. As for me, I began to believe, maybe for the first time in years, that my son had truly chosen well. Celeste grew softer, more attentive. She began coming by my office with warm herbal drinks, sometimes organizing the mail so Dad wouldn't strain his eyes. She didn't push, she didn't intrude. She just became part of the house. And like all things that settle in quietly, I lowered my guard, bit by bit. But then, as everything appeared picture perfect, as though life had finally pressed pause on chaos, that's when it began. Not with a crash, not with betrayal, but with a pause, a moment too quiet, a disappearance too subtle, a comment that meant nothing until it did. And slowly, without either of us knowing it, a plan was already unfolding, one that neither Grayson nor I had any idea we were walking into. 4 months into the marriage, Celeste said she wanted to take a break from work to focus entirely on the baby. No one objected. Grayson was even moved, touched that she would set aside her ambitions for the sake of family. "She's sacrificing for us," he told me, and I simply nodded. No comment, no protest. But something within me stirred. Not because of Celeste, but because of how easily I was accepting her. Me, Victor Ellington, the man who questioned everyone, who read people like open ledgers, who built an empire by not trusting at face value. I was drinking the tea she brewed, accepting the little health kits she dropped off, letting her walk freely into my office to tidy up documents without a second thought. One evening, I saw her on the phone in the living room, her voice barely a whisper. When I stepped closer, she hung up. "Just talking to my mother," she smiled, "about the plants. She loves gardening." I didn't say anything, but I remembered something very clearly. Her mother's garden had been dead since last spring. I saw it with my own eyes. Could it have been a simple slip? A white lie? Maybe. By the 6th month, Celeste began suggesting that Grayson step back from the markets for a while. "The stress isn't good for the baby," she said. "You should focus on the home." She didn't demand. She guided, softly, slowly. Project by project, Grayson handed off responsibilities, stopped signing major contracts, and transitioned into an internal advisory role. Not because he was manipulated, because he genuinely believed she was worth protecting. He wanted a family. He believed he'd found the right person to build it with. I was now the only one watching from the outside, the only one still cautious. Then came the email. No message, just an attachment. A screenshot from our private security system at Ellington Capital, specifically from the Asset Management Access Terminal in my personal office. The login name read C. Ward, Celeste. I'd given her access to my space, but never to that system. Never. I didn't confront her. I didn't say a word to Grayson. I did what I do best. I watched. I left a few decoy documents on my desk. Confidential-looking contracts, mock merger reports, all fabricated. I applied a light layer of invisible ink, only visible under UV, on the final page of one report. 3 days later, I found faint fingerprints, right where they shouldn't be. Not just curiosity, infiltration. Still, I needed more. I needed to know just how far this went. That's when Mark, my personal driver of 16 years, resigned without notice. No explanation, no goodbye. I called, no answer. 2 days later, a contact of mine in private intelligence forwarded me a blurry photo he'd taken while investigating something else at a Palm Springs resort. It showed a text message on a burner phone. One line, "We need to accelerate. Victor's starting to suspect." The sender? A number registered under Marcus Ward, Celeste's father. Now it was undeniable. This wasn't a family drama. It was a blueprint, designed long ago and likely approaching its final act. But what Celeste and her family didn't know was this. I'm not just a retired investor sipping tea on a marble balcony. I'm Victor Ellington, and I had already begun drawing my own blueprint for the endgame. I didn't strike back immediately. If this was a game of chess, I needed to know where every piece stood before I moved a single pawn. I hired a private team, not through any official channels, not tied to Ellington Capital, just 3 people, all ex-intelligence, now independent investigators, quiet, precise, invisible. 2 weeks later, they returned with names and documents, enough to make my skin go cold. Celeste wasn't pregnant. She had visited a private clinic 3 months earlier. No record of pregnancy in any medical file. The ultrasound images Grayson had shown me, proudly, were doctored. Stock images, edited. But that wasn't the worst part. 5 years ago in Colorado, Celeste went by another name, Selena Grace. She had once been engaged to a telecommunications entrepreneur. He died in a tragic accident 2 months after the engagement. His father suspected foul play, filed a report, but the case was dropped quietly. Selena vanished, only for Celeste Ward to reappear 2 years later. I read the file 3 times, not in anger, not in disbelief, but in something deeper, colder. Grayson had no idea, and if I told him, he might not believe me. Because love, even in the most intelligent men, is a kind of devotion. It blinds. I didn't target Celeste directly, not yet. Instead, I turned my focus to Ward-Rise Properties, the family business led by Marcus Ward. From the outside, they looked like rising stars in the real estate world, snapping up land, flipping properties at lightning speed. But my investigators found the cracks. 3 major projects under secret review for falsified environmental reports, zoning fraud, and insider political bribery. Still, I did nothing. Instead, I quietly shifted capital. Through a separate investment fund I controlled, I pulled out 20% of Ward-Rise's core funding, under the guise of portfolio restructuring. Suddenly, they couldn't cover the concrete bills, on two active developments. I still said nothing. Celeste kept serving tea. Grayson kept kissing her forehead every morning, but beneath the floorboards the structure was starting to rot. One evening, Grayson came into my study. He didn't look defeated, just uncertain. "Dad," he said, "something's not right. Celeste's tired all the time, distant, but I don't know what to think." I looked at him. I only asked one question. If the truth cost you the person you love most, would you still want to know it? He was silent for a long time. Then he nodded. "I have to, no matter how much it hurts." That night I handed him the folder. No speech, no warnings. He stayed up reading in my office until sunrise. When I found him the next morning, he was still there, eyes bloodshot, back straight. He looked up at me, not as a boy asking for comfort, but as a man ready to face something alone. "We end this," he said. I nodded. "Not just end it, expose it." Grayson gripped my hand, not like a son clinging to his father, but like two men of the same blood standing side by side, ready to fight for what's right. Grayson didn't rage, he didn't shout, didn't weep. He stood up after a night of silence, straightened his shirt, and said, "I'm ending this marriage, but not before the world sees what they are." I nodded. The game had changed. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about truth, not screamed in a courtroom, but revealed. Slowly, irrevocably, we hired a private family law firm, discreet, airtight. Grayson began preparing divorce proceedings with full asset protection. Every cent he'd earned before the marriage was separated, documented, and safeguarded. The lawyer said one thing: if she tries to strike, we'll be ready, with every camera on her. I planted a rumor, a fabricated report suggesting Ellington Capital was selling part of its equity to a foreign conglomerate. 3 days later, Celeste made a call to her father using a satellite phone. I knew because I'd placed an audio relay near her favorite call spot, the rosemary hedge in my back garden. "If you don't act now," she said, "they'll move the power offshore. Evan won't have anything left." Her father's voice hissed through the static. "Then make sure he doesn't get the chance." Grayson invited Celeste to dinner, a quiet, elegant penthouse overlooking the river, wired with high-end surveillance, every whisper recorded. They talked. Grayson mentioned wanting to reduce his workload, maybe transfer his equity to someone he trusted. Celeste leaned in, her voice smooth as velvet. "If you trust me, I can help. It should all come back to our family, all of it." Grayson asked gently, "What do you mean by that?" She smiled. "We don't need Victor anymore, do we? You and I, we could start fresh." Every word, captured, stored, duplicated 3 times in secure drives. The next morning, Grayson filed for divorce. Celeste exploded, shouting, crying, demanding, until she received a federal subpoena, summoning her to court over alleged financial fraud, identity manipulation, and illegal access to corporate data. At the same time, Wardrise began to collapse. My quiet exit from their funding line triggered a cascade. Investors fled, auditors arrived, regulators followed. What happened next? Even I didn't expect. The Wards turned on each other. Marcus Ward, once the patriarch, testified in a closed session that Celeste had masterminded the infiltration of Ellington Capital and falsified her pregnancy. Celeste retaliated, filing her own affidavit, accusing her father of orchestrating the marriage for corporate espionage, claiming her stepmother had forged documents under her name. Wardrise released a public statement. Celeste Ward acted independently. Her decisions do not represent the company. She'd been disowned by her own blood, so she leaked everything, audio files, planning documents, years of internal deception. The headlines went from rising real estate empire to family at war, the implosion of Ward Rise. It was no longer a scandal. It was a spectacle. And we didn't even have to push. They destroyed each other. Ward Rise declared bankruptcy within 3 weeks. Trading suspended. Assets frozen. Marcus Ward indicted on 7 federal charges. Celeste Ward arrested for fraud, identity manipulation, and conspiracy. But their worst punishment? Each other. They had built a family on greed. And when the foundation cracked, they clawed at one another like starving wolves. A friend once told me, "Crooked families don't fall from outside, they rot from the inside, because evil doesn't like to share." Grayson, he didn't rejoice. He didn't speak for days. After the final court date, I found him standing in our living room, staring at a wedding photo he hadn't yet burned. "I tried to believe, right until the end," he whispered. I didn't answer. I placed a hand on his shoulder. "Because you're good, son, and good people always try to see the light in others." The house was quiet again. No clicking heels on marble floors. No sharp perfume that lingered like a statement. No smiles that felt scripted. No questions asked with eyes that already knew the answer. Just me and Grayson, and everything we hadn't said aloud. I once thought that when it was all over, I'd feel lighter, that I'd finally sleep through the night without medication, that my morning coffee would taste like peace. But no. Victory does not bring joy, not when it's purchased with shattered trust and truth too heavy to celebrate. When I saw Celeste escorted from court, her hair undone, makeup streaked, flashes popping in her face, I didn't feel vindicated. I felt empty. When Marcus Ward pulled his hand from his daughter's grip outside the courtroom, refusing even her gaze, I didn't feel pity. I only thought, this is what happens when a family is built on ambition, not love. No forgiveness, no sanctuary. Grayson didn't speak for days. He returned to the house, their house, boxed her clothes, took down their wedding photo, gently folded the baby blanket she'd hung as decoration. I saw him at the window, not angry, not broken, just tired. "I tried to believe in her," he said one night, voice low. I didn't blame him. I put my hand on his shoulder. That's what good people do. They believe, even when it hurts. I retired. I stepped away from Ellington Capital. No more board meetings, no more reports, no more nights spent staring at graphs trying to predict the world. I started tending the garden, writing. I learned how to steep tea properly, no longer for energy, but for ritual. I cooked, and sometimes Grayson joined me in the kitchen, learning from scratch. He didn't talk much those first few months, but he stayed. And when we shared meals in silence, it was the kind that healed. Grayson began building something new, a small fund, quiet, focused on businesses led by single mothers, veterans, and people passed over by traditional institutions. He didn't ask for my advice. He didn't need it. He wasn't rebuilding himself. He was becoming someone else, someone better. One evening, I watched him slowly tear their last photo in half. No rage, no shaking hands, just resolve. "I don't hate her," he said, "but I won't let that version of me live in me anymore." I nodded. Then that's enough. That's healing. Because the greatest lesson isn't in who betrayed you, it's in who you choose to become afterward. Celeste received a 7-year sentence. Marcus, 15. Ward Rise disappeared from the papers, from memory. No one in this house speaks their names anymore. Not out of anger, but because some fires shouldn't be rekindled, especially the ones that once burned down your belief in people. A young journalist once emailed me, Mr. Ellington, do you have a message for those who once trusted the wrong people? I wrote back, mistakes don't define you. Refusing to trust again does, but this time trust with both your heart and your mind. That night I sat on the balcony. The jazz was soft. The wind carried no threat. Grayson poured me a glass of red wine. We toasted, not to success or to survival, but to something quieter. To those who stay kind, even after being betrayed, I said. Grayson clinked his glass. To those who don't let pain make them cruel. We didn't look toward the future with awe. We just looked at each other and knew we're still here, still standing, still believing. And this time, our faith has found the right home.